Hi, everyone. It's 4 o'clock in New York, where we are tracking breaking news on the two big stories we've been following all week long. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi confirms today in a letter to her colleagues that she will transmit the two articles of impeachment against Donald J. Trump next week. The House impeached Donald Trump, of course, for abusing his power as he carried out U.S. foreign policy by asking the leader of a country at war, Ukraine, to commit to an investigation into Trump's domestic political rival before Trump would hand over congressionally authorized military aid. As the president himself is faced with his closest brush yet with the prospect of war, one can't help but wonder if he views the withholding of military aid with any remorse. Well, a Trump ally last night told me, quote, he has zero capacity for empathy. So I'm guessing the prospect is slim to none on that front. On the president's war powers, though, even Republicans questioning the Trump administration's authority. A debate that was already underway when dramatic contradictions burst into public between Trump and his Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. An inexplicable inability to get their story straight on day 8 of the crisis with Iran. Here are Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo's discordant comments on the intel leading up to the strike on General Soleimani delivered last night within hours of one another. Trump at a rally, of course, and Pompeo on Fox News.
Soleimani was actively planning new attacks, and he was looking very seriously at our embassies, and not just the embassy in Baghdad. But we stopped him, and we stopped him quickly, and we stopped him cold.
There were a series of imminent attacks that were being plotted by Qasem Soleimani. We don't know precisely when, and we don't know precisely where, but it was real.
The rolling communications calamity coming into even sharper focus during these exchanges with reporters when Pompeo delivered a briefing at the White House.
The administration said this strike was done based on an imminent threat. But this morning, you said we didn't know precisely when and we didn't know precisely where. That's not the definition of imminent. The president has also suggested that there was some sort of attack being planned against an embassy, perhaps several embassies. Can you clarify? Did you have specific information about an imminent threat, and did it have anything to do with our embassies?
We had specific information on an imminent threat, and those threat stream included attacks on U.S. embassies. Period. Full stop.
Last night, the president said it was a threat to embassies, including to our Baghdad embassy. Why can you say that here, and the president could say it at a rally in Toledo, but no one said it to lawmakers behind closed doors in a classified setting, as multiple senators have since said?
We did.
You said so. The senators are lying when they say that
we told them about the imminent threat. All of the intelligence that we've briefed, that you've heard today, I assure you, in an unclassified setting, we provide in the classified setting as well.
Pompeo calling 100 senators there liars. Already a handful of lawmakers calling BS on that claim from Pompeo.
I don't know what the secretary is talking about. I stayed for the entire briefing, including after I asked my questions. I stayed there even as he left because they abruptly ended the briefing. I didn't hear what he just said.
No one at that briefing said what President Trump said publicly the other day, that they were going to bomb the embassy in Baghdad.
I have no recollection in both classified and unclassified of hearing anything about embassies being targeted.
All these questions about the intel come as 3 Republicans join Democrats in the House to limit Trump's wartime authority and place more decision-making in the hands of Congress. One of them is one of Trump's closest allies.
If the members of our armed services have the courage to go and fight and die in these wars, as Congress, we ought to have the courage to vote for them or against them. I support the president. Killing Soleimani was the right decision, but engaging in another forever war in the Middle East would be the wrong decision, and that's why I'm voting for this resolution.
The House moving to grab back control as news breaks today in the Washington Post that hints at a broader offensive against the Iranian regime. That on the day U.S. forces killed Soleimani, they launched another failed secret operation targeting a senior Iranian official in Yemen. Post reporting this, quote, the unsuccessful operation may indicate that the Trump administration's killing of General Soleimani last week was part of a broader operation than previously explained, raising questions about whether the mission was designed to cripple the leadership of the IRGC or solely to prevent an imminent attack on Americans, as originally stated. This muddle is where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. White House reporter for the Washington Post, Ashley Parker. On the Capitol Hill beat for us today, Anna Palmer, senior Washington correspondent for Politico. Here at the table, former Undersecretary of State in the Obama administration, Rick Stengel. Karine Jean-Pierre's back. She's Chief Public Affairs Officer with MoveOn.org. And the Rev Al Sharpton, host of Politics Nation here on MSNBC and the president of the National Action Network. Ashley Parker, I have the scar tissue from fielding questions about intel in the lead up to a war. And if I learned anything, it's that you only get one chance to set the record straight after you've created a muddle. They're on day 8, the Secretary of State and the President of the United States saying drastically different things, including this from the president in the last hour. This was the president on Laura Ingraham, now being even more specific, saying there was intel that 4 embassies were at risk. Let me play that.
Do they have large-scale attacks planned for other embassies? And if those were planned, why can't we reveal that to the American people? Wouldn't that help your case?
I can reveal that I believe it would have been 4 embassies.
Ashley Parker.
I mean, the problem with this is that we really don't know what to believe out of this administration for a couple of reasons. The first reason is a blanket macro reason, which is that for 3 years now, the president has sometimes said things that are true and just as frequently said things that are not true. So there's not a lot of reliable narrators. And then to go to the micro, just looking at this, you have people like Secretary Pompeo, top national security officials, going up to Capitol Hill for a classified briefing with senators, which is the very place where they're supposed to be able to reveal these specifics, and saying it's too classified to reveal them. And then you have the president sharing those same specifics on Fox News, as you just played, at the rally in Toledo last night that I was at. And then you have this other murky thing, which is this is a president who quite proudly often dismisses his own intelligence communities, and they haven't been able to answer why, why do you not believe your own people when it comes to Russia election interference, but you do believe them on these imminent attacks. And then there also finally has not been a very clear explanation of just what the definition of imminent is.
Anna Palmer, we can work on that for them. But here's Daniel Dale on the shifting explanations. One, over 2 days, Trump has gone from 1, not mentioning embassies, to 2, saying it was the embassy in Baghdad, to 3, saying it was embassies, plural, to 4, saying it was 4 embassies. It would appear, I thought it was pretty dramatic when Mike Lee came out of that briefing and called it the worst briefing on a military action he's ever seen in his career. Democrats even harsher, calling it sophomoric, and attacking the briefers, who were none other than the American Secretary of Defense, our director of the CIA, the Secretary of State, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. What is sort of the bubbling state of play on Capitol Hill among Democrats and Republicans?
Yeah, I think it was pretty stunning what Mike Lee did, coming out of there oftentimes in lockstep with the president on policy issues, and his frustration bubbling over there. Kind of what Democrats have been saying for the past couple of days. I think they're very frustrated by this changing narrative, the fact that they feel as though they didn't get a clear sense of why the president chose to move now. I think that's why you had so many Democrats kind of vote for the war powers resolution to try to rein back some of that power. But I think for the most part, Republicans are still sticking with this president. You have those outliers, like you mentioned, Matt Gaetz out of Florida, who oftentimes is an ally of the president, but now on this issue has decided that he believes pretty strongly that Congress needs to have a vote on whether the U.S. goes to war or not. But he is the outlier. You do not see a lot of Republican members of Congress in the Senate or the House choosing to break with this president yet.